Before we get to our keynote conversation with Samira Nasr, I would like to recognize and thank McKinsey & Company, our longtime valued knowledge partner, for supporting this special event. McKinsey would like to share some insights from their 7th annual Women in the Workplace report, which is conducted in partnership with leanin.org. Welcome Katie Gordon Motwani, a partner in the firm's New York office. Katie, welcome and thank you for joining us. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Faladay. I'm really honored to be here to participate in this important event that's bringing together students and media to have conversations on launching careers and women in the media industry. It's great that so many of you are here today joining us, so thank you for being here. One way that McKinsey is contributing to much needed action here is through research that sets out a compelling business and economic case for diversity. And we recently published our 7th annual Women in the Workplace report, which I hope many of you saw. In this round of research, 423 companies representing over 12 million employees participated. And the study included analysis of the talent pipeline, overview of HR policies and programs, employee surveys, and employee interviews. And the research showed that we're at an inflection point for many women. Many worked harder than ever to stay in the workforce during the pandemic, to the benefit of companies. Almost half of all women now report serious burnout, and I'm sure many of us had a similar experience over the last nearly 2 years. And companies face a choice. So recognize, support, and keep women, or watch them leave to find the recognition and the lifestyle that they deserve. Women leaders have taken on the lion's share of work to support employees and invest in diversity, equity, and inclusion during COVID. Our research showed that 1 in 5 of women senior leaders spend a substantial amount of time on DEI work, and that's not central to their jobs. It's in addition to their day jobs, as compared to 1 in 10 men senior leaders. This additional leadership from women provided the connective tissue that companies needed so badly during this nearly 2 years of pressure and strain on the workforce. But they aren't being recognized for their work. In our research, we found that 87% of companies say that it's very or extremely critical that managers support employee well-being, but only 25% are formally recognizing this work. And this work is on top of unpaid labor that the women are doing at home. So more than 1 in 3 women and 60% of mothers with young children, the category I fall into, are spending 5+ hours a day on caregiving and responsibilities in their home. And this is true even after controlling for the share of income that they are bringing to the household. So women are burned out, even more than men. Now, both men and women are more burned out than they were last year, for sure. But the gap between men and women's burnout levels has nearly doubled. While we haven't yet seen women leaving corporate jobs in large numbers, we also haven't seen big movement on some of the building blocks of progress, especially for women of color. In 2020, 93% of companies made a commitment to increase focus on racial equity, but only 41% of employees that we surveyed think that their company has really followed through. Women of color continue to be dramatically underrepresented at higher levels of the pipeline at every step of the corporate ladder, and they lose ground to men of color and white women. Over the past 7 years of research, some companies have led the pack in progress. Among other things, here's some of the things that these companies have done. They're tracking diversity metrics, and they're holding leaders accountable for meeting them by tying outcomes to performance reviews and financial incentives. They're addressing the broken rungs, so to speak, through programs to combat bias in performance reviews and hiring. And they're providing support for employees such as on-site childcare, parental leave, and mental health resources. And that's great progress. But from my experience, I also think that there's a next horizon that we have to get to, and that's reimagining and reinventing the way we work. I mentioned a minute ago that stat of women spending 5+ hours a day on caregiving and responsibilities in their homes. For me, what I've found personally challenging is just making that equation work when nothing has really fundamentally changed about the job description or the roles that I play on teams. The flexible policies give me autonomy to shape my work, but then figuring out how to fit a shorter workday into the system and still deliver is a completely other story. So I think we need a reimagining of how we structure work, how we structure teams, because as long as the 5+ hours of investing in home life breaks the equation, then we're not there yet. But meanwhile, I do think there's good news. There are things that have dramatically changed the game for me as a woman balancing my work and my home life. And so I don't think we have to wait for work to be reinvented. For me, it's being surrounded by exceptional people, helping me deliver impact so that I'm not doing it on my own. And when I'm surrounded by a great team that's motivated and doing their best work, it's a radically different equation. And that's a way that we can help each other. I tell women I work with, when you excel, it not only propels you forward, but it also propels upward the senior women you're working with that you're supporting, so they can go break some more glass for all of us. Said another way, I tell them they're the solid rocket booster on the rocket. So against that backdrop, events such as today's summit are increasingly important. And now I'd like to introduce the moderator for today's keynote conversation. You may recognize her from time as the host of Snapchats Online, IRL, and GQ's Instagram TV show, The Run Through. Nikki Ogunnaike is currently the digital director at Harper's Bazaar magazine, and her work has also appeared in Glamour, InStyle, and Elle magazine. Over to you, Nikki.
Thank you so much, Katie, for that intro. I really appreciate it, and I'm so honored to be here today. As you mentioned, my name is Nikki Ogunnaike, and I'm the digital director at Harper's Bazaar. And I am so honored today to be in conversation with Samira Nasr, Harper's Bazaar's editor-in-chief.
Hi, I want to say hi to everyone, all of our participants, everyone joining us. It really is an honor. Hold on. Start my video. Okay, it's an honor to be with you here today and to be part of this incredible summit.
Yes. So Samira, I just want to give everyone who is tuning in today a little rundown on your mega impressive career. For everyone who is out there, Samira joined Harper's Bazaar from Vanity Fair, where she was previously the executive fashion director. And that's where she managed and directed the magazine's fashion department and all of the fashion content. Samira joining Harper's Bazaar, she is the first woman of color editor-in-chief in the history of the magazine's 153-year-old history, which is just so impressive and wonderful to be a part of your team, Samira. So I'm so excited to speak with you today.
I'm thrilled to be doing this with you. Thanks.
Absolutely. So Samira, as I mentioned, you have an amazing career, which you started as a fashion assistant at Vogue magazine. Tell us a little bit about how you went from that position to editor-in-chief.
Well, I actually started as an intern. So I just want everyone to know that I started as an intern and, and then, yes, I got an assistant position. And I would say that I got here by hard work and curiosity. And I got here in my own time. I think that there's something, when we're developing our careers and we're building our careers and we're pursuing our dreams, we're part of our peer group, and sometimes our peers have, advanced at their own pace, and sometimes we think our pace and our advancement needs to sort of reflect everyone else's. And I very early on decided that I couldn't keep up with that. And so I just stayed patient and I just kept working at it. And I was an assistant well into my 30s, while everyone around me was sort of moving on and I was still an assistant, and I just kind of kept plugging away and I stayed curious. And I think that served me and still serves me now.
That's amazing. I love the idea of sort of just like plugging away and staying in your own lane. It's really, really easy, I think, in this industry or in any industry really to start comparing yourself to others. start looking around at what other people are doing. And it would seem that you haven't done that.
I mean, it's hard to avoid doing that, but I think to remind yourself that, you know, this is your own story and each of our stories is unique, and we're not meant to have the same things in the same time. But if you still stay committed to actualizing your potential and fulfilling your dreams and sort of following your curiosity in a professional way, I do think it leads us all to where we should be.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, you mentioned that you started as an intern and then you landed the sort of coveted assistant position that everyone wants. What do you think it was about your actions early on in your career that helped you advance and helped you sort of stand out within the crowd?
Hard work. My parents are both immigrants and they both set the example of hard work. And I think I stood out because I was curious and hardworking and just committed to doing whatever needed to be done. And even if it fell outside of sort of my quote unquote responsibilities, I always have had a willingness to help and to participate. And one of the things that drew me to this career is teamwork. I love teamwork. I thrive in that environment. So I've never been someone to say, oh, that isn't my responsibility. You know, I mean, even to this day, if I see people struggling packing up trunks, I'm happy to help do that. Like, that's the beauty of what we do. We get to do it together as a community. And I think that also helped me stand out because I've always had a willingness to participate.
Were you ever shy early on in your career, or were you the person that would like raise your hand and say, I'll do it, I'll take it on?
Both. I'm actually a very shy person, but I was always cognizant of the fact that my being in the room was a privilege because I was aware of my differences. And so I knew that I was lucky to be there. And so I've always wanted to take advantage of being in the room with people that it felt like an opportunity. So I was always raising my hand and forcing myself to come out of my shell a little bit.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you were aware of your differences, which I think is, you know, it's interesting. The fashion industry has made strides on the diversity front, but I mean, you know, it's easy, or I think it's clear that, you know, there could always be more to do. There's always a little more to do. But how did you handle being one of few people of color when you were starting out? Did you feel isolated? And if you did, how did you handle that?
I'd actually love to hear your perspective on this too, Nikki, but I did feel isolated, but there were a few of us, and I can name them all. But it's this thing where I remember my parents. I'm my parents' child, and I can't explain how that has grounded me, but it has made me like proud and feel like I have to carry them with me in the room. And so there have been moments that have felt very isolating. And certainly I've faced situations that other people have not. But I think just remembering where I come from.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, same. My mom, before I left the house literally to go anywhere, would always have me recite this little credo. And a part of it was that I'm an ambassador for the Ogunnaike family. And so
I love that so much.
Yeah, and it's really stuck with me. And so, you know, keeping in mind that I'm an ambassador for our family wherever I go, I agree. I carry it with me. I carry the fact that my parents immigrated here from Nigeria in the 70s and sacrificed a lot for us. And yeah, I just sort of keep that in mind. And I agree, there were a few of us, more so, I think, than ever before, because of people like you who paved the road for us, who sort of dealt with all of the other stuff. So we didn't have to. But yeah, it feels like a club, and it just feels like there's a sisterhood of those who have come before us, and we all sort of like look out for each other, which is really fantastic.
It is really fantastic. And the idea that we can be rooted in our family and sort of carry that pride. I think that almost feels like a security blanket
Mhm.
You know, I would encourage everyone, you know, who's joining us today to be reminded that, you know, when it does feel scary or when it does feel isolating, to remember where you come from, because I think that will empower you and will provide you with a little more security.
I agree. So what were some challenges that you faced when you were first starting off in your career, and how did you work through them?
I mean, some of the most basic challenges, Nikki, were, you know, I didn't vacation where most of the people vacationed. I didn't go to those schools. So I didn't have any of those references. I couldn't participate in those conversations, you know.
I'm like, yes, I do really know.
You do know, like
I didn't realize that like vacationing was a verb or could be a verb.
you know, like I had a pass to the local public pool and a bike, and you know, we didn't vacation. We didn't have
Summer.
multiple homes. We had a home, which I'm very proud of, but like, you know, so it just kind of made it challenging to find my way because there was no point of reference. There was no connected point of reference. But what was the connector was, you know, we all shared, you know, regardless of where we were from and regardless of the differences, the thing that connected us all as assistants or, you know, starting out was this curiosity about this career path, this you know, environment, magazines, publishing. So I just sort of focused on the things that could connect me rather than feeling alienated by the things that I didn't know.
Mhm.
And I also found my people.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that we need to remind everyone to do, you know, find your people. And even if it's one person that you can lock eyes with in a difficult situation, or, you know, you can turn to, I mean, that is really how I managed all of those obstacles along the way.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think for me, I knew that I would never fit in sort of in the standard way. So I didn't really like strive to, I just sort of strive to arrive as myself and then meet people where they were and, you know, find like sort of harmony in the differences and really sort of just know that you can form a bond with somebody and find your people, and your people may not necessarily always look exactly like you, but they're still your people at heart, and that's what like will carry you and your relationships through.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. So as somebody who, you know, at this point has hired a lot of sort of entry to mid-level positions, what skills and qualities do you look for when you're hiring?
Curiosity. I mean, I know I keep going back to it, but curiosity. What do you read? What do you do in your off time? What are your passions? Also, specifically in hiring at Harper's Bazaar, you know, I meet everyone, even if it's for an entry-level assistant position. And there are two questions I always ask. One is, who are some of your favorite designers? Because since we're a fashion brand, I want, you know, and I look for people to know or to have an answer to that. Because if you're coming to a fashion media brand, you should, you know, the candidates should be aware of the landscape and the people we are covering. I also ask them, you know, what are your interests? And I also ask them at the end if they have any questions for me. And I think that to me is really important to know that someone has thought about, you know, wow, if I have this time with this person, because I started as an intern, I always took advantage of any opportunity I had to be in a room with someone who knew more than I did, or who had a career path that maybe I thought I could pursue. And so if someone doesn't have a question for me, it makes me wonder if perhaps they aren't the right candidate for us. So those are things that I look for.
That's cool.
And I also always ask them, like, what have you liked about what we do? You know, what do you like about what we do? Because I want to know that they've actually looked, whether it's what we do online or what we do in book. Like I want people to be sort of prepared for their meeting with me. And that's something that I definitely look for.
Yeah, I think I mean, I feel like you asked me those questions as
Did
well.
I?
And we've worked together now, or have been in the same spaces for years, but I do
For
think that
years.
there is something to be said for, as you've said, that curiosity, you know, just being interested in the specific publication that somebody is interviewing at. And I love the question, you know, I love asking if anyone has any questions for me, because that does show an interest in, you know, the space that they're applying for.
Yes. Yeah, it's really important.
So for those of us who are sort of tuning in and may have an idea of what an editor-in-chief does, you know, in seeing it on Instagram, I'd love for you to tell them like what really being an editor-in-chief is like. What is your day-to-day like?
Okay, so my day-to-day is I'm on Zoom. I think right now I started this job in the pandemic. So my day-to-day right now doesn't really reflect, I hope, what this job will be like when we fully emerge from this. But I'm on Zoom. But ultimately, my job involves working with a lot of people who know a lot more than I do about different things. And that is the great privilege of what I get to do at Harper's Bazaar. Is I lead a team of people and we create content digitally and in a print, in a magazine. And we are at the intersection of luxury and high fashion. We are storytellers, we are content creators, and I get to sort of lead that and I get to steer a ship. But I'm certainly not the person that knows the most in the room. And I've always, you know, it's something that Katie said in her opening remarks. You know, she spoke about being surrounded by a great team. And at Harper's Bazaar, you know, I am surrounded by you, and we have Leah, we have Caitlin, we have, you know, there's so many people, Laura. And so it's a team effort. And in the day-to-day, we're just planning our print issues. We're working on, you know, what we're doing in our digital space, and we're collaborating, and we are thinking about our audience and what they could be interested in, and trying to bring our unique point of view out into the world and tell the stories that we think are relevant. But mostly it all happens on Zoom for now.
For now, but you know, hopefully things will be changing soon. But let's talk about that a little bit. What was it like for you? And you know, I have a lot of emotions on this subject as well. But what was it like for you starting a job in the middle of a pandemic, and how did you deal with that? How do you continue to inspire our team every day?
I mean, I don't even know if we've really unpacked, you know, what it means for us collectively, the sort of the trauma of it. And, you know, there's been so much loss, but there've also been so many gifts from the past 2 years. Certainly me taking on this role has been a gift for me. I think the way I inspire is just, I try to remind people, I try to see people, I try to acknowledge people, I try to call out our successes. But starting in the middle of this also, you know, on the heels of, you know, it was Black Lives Matter had just sort of, that movement just started when my announcement happened. And you came on not long after that. And I think I suddenly took on this new role, but I also became a face of progress in our industry. And I don't think I was entirely prepared for that. But it has been a tremendous privilege to be in situations and in conversations like these, where people can see my likeness, can see your likeness, and can know that if we've done it, knowing where we are from, where our parents are from, that these opportunities are not, they're available to anyone who's willing to do the work and be committed to the work. And so that has been a tremendous privilege. And at first I didn't know how to carry that banner, you know, because suddenly people were looking at me for more than just like the role. But it has felt like a great privilege.
Yeah. I mean, I feel the exact same way. I think you're sort of thrusted into this spotlight, and then you're the poster child, and you're like, wait a second. Hold on.
I thought I was just doing a job here. I thought I was editing. Yeah.
Exactly. But I do think there's something to be said. You know, there's a lot of pressure. I think, frankly, for me, I will say there's a lot of pressure because I have never been in a big managerial role in this way. And you just want to do your best. But I think, you know, that there are a lot of eyes watching. And more so than any time in the past when people were stepping into these positions, you know, there wasn't like Twitter or Instagram or YouTube where everyone's like, I have an opinion, I'm going to share it. And, you know, so there is that sort of, there's that pressure, and you can carry that pressure with you. But I think that you've stayed true and you've stayed steadfast in just creating good things, creating good work. And when you do that, then all of the other stuff, you know, around race and diversity and culture, that sort of just comes with it because it's innate.
I think, you know, my dad always said, actions speak louder than words. And so I've always been really, really, really committed to the work, and to let the work speak about my mission at Harper's Bazaar, and the work speak to who I want to bring along with me, you know, like, just look, they're all around me, they're here. And I think that has really, I'm glad you said that, because that's really been the important thing. I got the keys, right? I got the keys, and let's do something with them. Let's take this opportunity and let's let that speak more than, you know, me just being in this role. You know, let's set a standard and let's keep building on it, and let's keep doing great work, so that we can all shine, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we are going into year 2 as editor-in-chief. We made it. We made it.
We made it.
What can everyone look forward to? How will you continue to lead this new chapter of the magazine, reimagine it, amplify voices, all of that good stuff?
Well, the great news is it's a magazine, but it's also digital. And as you know, we work together on that. And I think it's just for us to continue on what we've started. You know, we're at the intersection of luxury fashion and culture, and I get to bring my fullness into the space, and I get to edit this magazine. I can never sort of unsee the way I see the world, you know, and so I think if we are covering culture, I think the people who resonate the most for me are from marginalized communities, and sort of allowing them to have a seat at our table at Harper's Bazaar and contribute and tell their stories. I want to continue building on that in print, in digital. I think, you know, we want to develop our voice and our authority in our industry. I want to grow our community of contributors, but also of readers. You know, I want people to feel seen and acknowledged, and I want people to grow with us, really, you know, and I want people to be able to discover through our lens and our unique storytelling. So it's really taking the legacy of the brand and broadening it so that more people who maybe have never felt seen in these spaces can feel acknowledged.
Yeah, absolutely.
And represented.
Absolutely. So before we go to our questions, I have one last question for you. I would love to know, if you had to go back in time and give young Samira a piece of advice, young Samira who was just starting out her career, a piece of advice, what would you tell her?
Worry less. I really, you know, I've worked hard my whole life, and I've always felt this pressure to, you know, keep working and work hard. And I've never known, like, oh, I want that job. I've never had clarity on that. I just have always wanted to achieve. And I've always had this pressure and this worry that I may not get there, you know, that it may not be enough. And I'm constantly reminded that each and every one of us, each and every one in this call, we're all enough. Everyone participating today, you are enough. And I wish I could go back and tell her to worry less, that she is enough.
Yeah. I feel like I need to tell myself that now.
Right?
But
Yeah. I'll
every
tell you
day.
tomorrow, Nikki. I'll remind you every day on our meeting.
It's
Be like, hey,
okay.
Nikki, you're enough.
Worry less.
You
You're
overflow
enough.
it. You overflow it with enough.
I love that. Okay, so let's go to our questions from the audience. Let's bring on Ada, I believe, who will be our first person to ask a question.
Hi, Ada. Oh, you're muted, my friend.
I'm so sorry.
Oh my God, did you see me? I couldn't even get on the call, so don't worry about it.
Thank you so much for coming in to talk to us. I'm really inspired by everything that you shared, so I'm really excited to talk to you. I'm a student at Boston University and I'm a senior. I'm Ada, and my question for you is, so Harper's Bazaar is very like creative, innovative, and that's just kind of been growing over the years. And what inspires you in your work today to kind of keep that going? And what was the most like ambitious project that you've worked on?
The most ambitious project that I've worked on is the next one. You know, I think we are constantly, and Nikki can attest to this, is, you know, we're always like, okay, we did that. What can we do now? You know, but the thing that I'm most proud of, to be honest, is just to be in this space, you know, that this job has given us a platform to connect with you, to inspire you, to remind you that this career, my career, Nikki's career, this is available to you. You know, you can pursue this, you can lean into it, and you can dream even bigger. And that has really been sort of the privilege and like the greatest gift.
Okay, so let's bring up Eden Ann, who I believe has our next question.
Actually, our next question will be from Caroline Bartley.
Oh, nice.
Hi, Caroline.
First of all, I would like to thank you guys for coming on and talking to us today. I think what you had to say was very interesting. So my question is, so like, how do we gain like know-how in programs that are typically expensive for an individual to own? So I'm kind of talking in the realm of like things like Adobe, like Creative Suite, and certain databases, things like that. I asked because there's so many companies that, you know, they want years of experience in these programs, and I feel like that makes it harder for me to measure up to other applicants who already have those skills. And I mean, I'm still green when it comes to like having relevant experience in media and communication, which is why I don't already have those skills. So what are your tips for kind of making up for that skill gap?
I'm going to let Nikki jump in here, but I would say, do you have access to any of that through school or through like a library or a local community center?
That's just one thing I forgot to mention. I am a recent graduate from Harper University.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So do you have access to that through through Hofstra or any like local community program or your university that you can like practice and sort of get a hand on it?
Well, I actually live in a completely different state from where I went to college. So that would be something that's difficult. So we don't really have access to that. But even when I was in college, like access to like the more of those like creative programs were only available to people who are like art majors. And I'm a business major. I majored in marketing when I was in school. So yeah.
I mean, I personally have spent a lot of time on YouTube. Honestly, I think that that's a great way to start. So I would, you know, start researching on YouTube. And then I know that this is a different skill gap, a different sort of skill, but I watched my boyfriend over the last year and a half teach himself how to code through a program called App Academy. And so there are these sort of third-party sort of organizations that are happy to teach you these skill sets. There is a cost to it, but with something like App Academy that my boyfriend went to, he was able to learn through this program. And then once he got a job, he was able to pay them back with, but there was a guarantee that he would get a job through App Academy and then pay them back. So I would look into programs like that if it's possible, for them to help you, learn or sort of like fill this skill gap.
YouTube is another great idea, Nikki. That's great.
Okay, thank you so much, guys.
Good luck, Caroline. It's nice to
Thank
meet you.
Okay, so our next question is from Fabiana Hernandez.
Hello. First of all, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for doing this. I feel so validated and seen. So thank you for that. So my name is Samira Hernandez. I am a sophomore at Rowe College. And both the fashion and the media industry are very competitive, right? And it is very usual to hear that when one's starting their career, people in higher positions usually like try to take advantage of you or maybe just not take you seriously. So I just would like to know if you ever experienced that and what will be your advice for us trying to break into these industries.
Well, it's lovely to meet you, Fabiana, and thank you for your question. I would say that when I started, there were no rules. It was the Wild West. I've moved people in a van. I've moved bosses. I've picked up dry cleaning. I've taken cats to a vet. I've done all kinds of things that had nothing to do with my job, but they actually had everything to do with my job. And that doesn't happen anymore. So it is competitive. Will people try and take advantage of you? I mean, perhaps, but I think there are certain levers and securities in place, and there's certain structures in place that are there now because we know more now than we knew when I was starting out. And certainly that is there for you to protect you. But I would like to think that starting out now, it's just about doing the work and being dedicated to that, and not feeling like if you're coming in an entry-level position, anything is owed to you. I think something that's happening that's unfortunate is that people are starting out and suddenly they feel like something is owed to them, but they're just starting out. And I think there needs to be less of that attitude and more of, what can I learn from this situation? What can I get out of this? How can I, if anything's owed to me, it is for me to learn, and it's not for someone to hand to me. But I think if you have the curiosity and the willingness to work hard, Fabiana, like I don't see why anything would prevent you from having an incredible career.
I agree. I think that Samira, yes, what Samira had to do, no, like it would not happen.
That's not going to happen
anymore.
Kind of
illegal.
And
like it just wouldn't happen anymore.
Yeah.
But I do think there's something to be said. I always go. The Karate Kid is one of my favorite movies. Samira, I don't know if you knew that, but
I love that movie.
So I always go back to the scenes. Yes, exactly, where Mr. Miyagi is teaching Daniel, and he's having him like paint his fence or like wipe a window in a certain way, but the entire time he's teaching him moves that he will be using in his big fight scene at the end of the movie. And I think there's something to be said. And if you're starting out and an editor asks you to transcribe a tape, well, then you're getting to listen to a very intimate conversation that so many people would never have the opportunity to do. And you're getting to listen to how somebody asks a question, how you ask a follow-up question. You're learning from your editor and what may seem like a menial task, but it's actually really, really important. So I agree. I would just say to find the lesson in the small things you may be asked to do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that.
Good luck with everything, Fabiana.
My name is Eden Ann Anderson. I am a senior TV and film major at the Presidential Howard University. My question for you both is, how would you recommend that a digital content creator go about securing a post-graduation position at a fashion magazine like Harper's Bazaar or Elle? For example, how to stand out in emails or just other forms of communication.
I'm going to let you take that, Nikki, and I'm going to add to it.
Okay. When I am looking to hire entry-level positions, I always look for people who really want to work at Harper's Bazaar specifically. I think, we get a lot of applications, and I always say to myself, does this person just want a job, or do they want to work at Harper's Bazaar? Do they want to work on my team, on Samira's team, on our team? Because as Samira said, teamwork is tantamount. It's so important to us. So I look for people that are curious about Harper's Bazaar, that want to be on the ground level, that want to build and are vocal about it. I learned early on in my career when I was interviewing for positions to say, if I really wanted the position, to say, I want to work here. I want to be a part of this team. And you'd be surprised how many people don't actually do that. And so I sometimes walk away from interviews and I'm like, did she like me? Did she want to work here? I don't know. I don't know. So just sort of being clear about what you want to do. And then I think that as there are so many sort of platforms that just didn't exist when I was looking for jobs. So I tell people if they are digital creators to like have your Instagram, have your Twitter, have a viewpoint, have a clear viewpoint. If you want to be a writer, start a newsletter and send it to me. My email address is not hard to find. It's definitely out there. So like, put me on your newsletter list, and then shoot me an email and say that, like, have you checked out my work? I think that there are just a lot of ways right now to sort of stand out if you just do it, if you really take that first work, and if you're not shy about, standing out.
And I would add to that, the people who have stayed in touch with me, like people will email me, I'll get a really nice email from someone and I'll think, oh, wow, this is great. Sometimes I'll forward it to Nikki or I'll forward it to somebody else. And, it's not like every day new positions are opening, but when people check back in, it speaks volumes, like, wow, maybe they really are interested in working here. And just keep checking back in. I think there's something to be said about persistence, because it's also like, I think we just need to meet this person at this point, because like they're still, coming back. And then it's just suddenly you find yourself, you formed a relationship with someone that you don't know. But then when something opens up, it's like, oh, remember Eden Ann? We've been in touch with her for this long. It's not easy to get your foot in the door, but you got to keep at it. And check the boards, like message boards. Also, like most companies, will post in, their HR has to post any openings, be on top of that. And as Nikki said, our emails aren't that hard to, figure out, and to just sort of keep in touch. And it's not about emailing every day, but just like a periodic check-in,
Yeah. And I think when you're checking in, tell me what you've been up to. I think a lot of people check in and they say, are you hiring? I'm like, no, not currently, but I'd love to just know what you're up to. So perhaps if the position is open, I can keep you top of mind. So just looking at the job search as an ever evolving conversation, rather than just like, sort of like, hire me now. And
or I did it once and I didn't hear back and I'm done. You got to be sort of diligent.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you both so much.
Good luck, Eden Ann.
Hi, can you hear me?
Hi, Gabriella. Hi.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Oh, nice to meet you.
First of all, I want to thank you so much. It was so inspiring hearing you both about your experience. And I wanted to ask you about how, if you had any direct challenge being a woman of color. I am from St. Francis College and I'm an international student, and I just moved on from Brazil to study here. And being from this diverse background, I feel that sometimes I face some challenge inside the fashion industry. And I would like to ask you if you had faced anything that was hard for you, and how has that inspired your work?
I would say yes. But I think every industry, I think people from marginalized communities in most industries face obstacles. But I would say that it has made me, it's done two things for me. It's made me more resolute in wanting to achieve and be myself in these spaces. And it has also made me so committed to, as I walk through a space, me being committed to looking back and pulling someone along with me, and pulling in as many people as I can with me. And I think I see progress and it makes me hopeful. You know, I look around and I look at, for example, Nikki and her peers and all of the women who came up with her, and there's so many more than when I started. And I look at the group underneath Nikki and it's even more. And I just think like we're making progress. And I think it's hard, but again, find your people and remind yourself where you're from and keep moving. Like it's not going to be the hardest thing you're going to face in your life. And the good news is also, I think now there are protections and there are people, there are resources in place that you can go to, you know, when things are difficult. And because there are more of us in these spaces, we can lock arms, and we can walk through them and support one another in them. And that gives me tremendous faith and hope. And I just know that it's getting better. There's progress being made. And so as Nikki is in her space, she's pulling through people, I'm pulling people in. Gabriela, as you go on in your career and you will achieve and you will advance, you know, you will pull people through, right? As you grow. And then the people coming underneath you, you know, will have an easier time of it. And that's just kind of the arc of progress is very, you can never know what it looks like in the moment. It's only when you get a little bit ahead of it that you can look back and think, wow, that was really great. And so that difficult day that I had was worth it, because look at where we are now, because I'm in the room and there are 5 other people that look like me in the room, whereas there was only 1 before. And that's sort of what fuels me to keep going.
Thank you so much. That's so important to hear. Thank you.
Good luck to you, Gabriela.
Thank you.
Okay, we have Yasmin next.
Hi, Yasmin.
Hi. Thank you very much for having me. This whole summit had been really revealing, and your intervention had been wonderful. So my name is Yasmin Portales Machado. I'm in a PhD program at Northwestern University. And okay.
I think you're good. Sorry, Yasmin.
Zoom. So my question is, I'm under the impression that entry jobs in the entertainment and fashion industry are better suited for young people, you know, like Gabriela just now, because they conventionally they are like unattached. They are able to afford temporal financial insecurity and hours because they don't have kids or elderly waiting home with this funny idea that they have to eat every day and need a roof under their heads. So what kind of job do you think that can realistically apply a 40-something woman breadwinner of the family trying to break in the industry?
It's a really good question, and I don't know if I have the answer to that. I think it's just a question of you figuring out what your interests are and then seeing within that what can work, you know. And I think if there is an opening, I think understanding within that job, you know, what are the expectations for hours, and can that job meet your financial needs? Because, you know, those are all very real concerns. But I refuse to believe that because of your age that these opportunities are not available to you, Yasmin. Don't set that don't stop dreaming or opening yourself up to a possibility because of your age. Obviously, you know, the financial that aspect that's real, and that I can't speak to. But I think, you know, if you are curious and you have a dream, I think you just have to see how you can find your way in. You know, I have a friend who's in her 50s and just got a job, you know, working in retail, you know. Her kids grew up and they all were off to school, and she's empty nester, and she wanted to go back to it. And it's amazing, you know, she gets up every day and she's going to work, and she's feeling great, and it's a way for her to be in fashion. But I don't only think that that's the only way either. You know, I think you just have to sort of have the dream and figure out your way in, and then see what could work for you within, you know, your realities.
Mm-hmm. I'll add to that. I think that, you know, Samira and I both work in the magazine and digital field, but those aren't the only creative jobs out there. A lot of like corporate places, banks, you know, law firms, those sorts of places, they still need a social media manager. They still need these sort of creative writer positions, marketing positions. So I would expand your scope when you're looking for jobs, and be open to these creative positions that may not be at traditionally creative companies.
Thank you very much. That was surprisingly optimistic.
I'm optimistic.
We're too optimistic.
I'm not giving up for you, Yasmin.
I'm pragmatic, but I am very much so an optimist. So
keep going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you.
Good luck with everything.
Okay, Sinead, you're up.
Hi, lovely to meet you both. Thank you both so much for speaking with us today. Both of you already kind of touched on this a bit. Oh, by the way, yeah, I'm Sinead, I go to Columbia. And my question is, as women of color in a predominantly white space historically, how do you combat any sort of imposter syndrome that you may have experienced or experience currently? And how do you stay motivated to do the work that inspires you?
First of all, I love your Sinead O'Connor poster. Just have to say that.
Thank you. Just in case I forget what my name is.
Sinead O'Connor poster.
Thank you.
And then I'm going to say that every time I have imposter syndrome, I go back to the thing that Nikki and I spoke about before, which is I'm grounded in my family's history. I am my ancestors' wildest dreams, and I'm not an imposter. I belong in these rooms because of where I come from, and how I was raised, and the values that I carry forward, and the legacy that I carry forward, and I have every right to be in this space. So that's where that imposter syndrome goes.
Yeah, completely.
Like, we're done? No. Just, there's no place for it. And I just, every time I feel it creeping up, and it does creep up, I'm not gonna lie, and I'm not gonna tell you, I never feel that way. It does creep up, but then I'm reminded, and I think, like, would my grandmother tell me that I'm an imposter in this room? Never. She would be like, why isn't the best seat reserved for you? You know, she'd be like, oh my, you should be sitting, you know, because the people who love me know that I belong in these spaces. And so I remind myself of that. And I remind myself of the hard work and all of the sacrifice that they have done, and to give me the opportunity to be here. So that does away with that. And then what was the second question?
How do you stay motivated to do the work that inspires you?
I love what I do. So it's not hard to stay motivated. I truly love, I love this industry. I love the fashion industry, for all of, you know, maybe it's problems. I think this industry has afforded me a beautiful life. I've met some of the most wonderful people. I get to work with people like Nikki and other fabulous people on our team. I get to learn, I get to be creative. So it's not hard for me to stay motivated, because I feel like I found a job, or I found a place that allows me to be constantly curious and constantly learn and constantly engaged. And so, yeah, it's not hard for me. And I think when you find something that you love, I don't think it's that challenging to stay motivated. I think it really just flows. And I think that's why you've got to keep at it until you find something that you love, because then it stops feeling like so hard. Anything to add, Nikki?
I mean, I have a tiny story. I remember when I got this job, when I was telling one of my friends, and I specifically was like, isn't it so crazy that I got this job? And she was like, no, it's not crazy at all. Actually, you have worked extremely hard and you deserve to be there. And I think that just having somebody who has seen your career trajectory and is very just sort of matter of fact in it is good to have in your corner, because they'll remind you that it's not crazy. I think that, you know, imposter syndrome is something that has sort of like popped up within the last 6 years within the dialogue of women working in spaces. And we're almost like now fed a narrative that we're supposed to have imposter syndrome. And we're supposed to feel like we should feel that we are imposters, but it's sort of like, no, you worked hard. You are here. You're taking strides. You chose to come to this summit today. So that, you know, you should carry that with you and know that you belong in these spaces as much as anyone else does.
Yeah.
Incredible. Thank you both so much.
Absolutely.
Good luck to you, Sinead.
Okay, Alexandra.
Hi. Thank you guys so much for coming here. Taking me tonight. Nice to meet you guys. I am Alex. I'm a senior at Fordham University. I go to the Bronx campus. So I'm someone who's interested in working in the editorial space, and I'm just not really sure in a magazine or a digital publication like Harper Bazaar, like where my skills would best be placed. So I was just wondering if you guys can tell me a little bit about the different teams and like sections underneath the larger umbrella of the publication.
So do you want to work at Harper's Bazaar because you love fashion, or?
I am really into I guess what you were speaking to more the trends and the cultural aspect of it. And so I was just wondering kind of more of like the ins and outs of like a typical fashion magazine.
So within a fashion magazine, so we have our print magazine, the print magazine. And then there's the digital space. And then there's also social media. So, you know, we're a media brand. And within that, we have, you know, there's an art department, there's a features team, there's a news team, there's a culture editor. So within that, we have people who have their hand in different things, who contribute in different ways. We have a photo team, and they help us book photographers and produce photo shoots. We have features writers. We have, what am I forgetting? I mean, there's so many different roles that go into the storytelling and the content creating that we do. And so if you are genuinely interested in sort of fashion and that intersection of fashion and culture, and specifically the lens of, you know, Harper's Bazaar, to Nikki's point, like, do people want to work here specifically? Within that and under that, you know, we have people who are copy editors. We have people who do research. There's so many people that contribute to bringing the print product to life and who contribute to, you know, all of the digital content that, you know, within, you can be interested in like culture specifically and contribute to that in the digital space. You know, you just have to figure out what the interest is and then, and I guess, pursue that. But it would have to be because you're interested in sort of the world of Harper's Bazaar, or if you're going to another media brand, it's because you like their point of view, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if I would add, you know, if you like writing, and if you like sort of, you know, if you like writing, then maybe you go out for a role that's on the features team. They're in charge of creating the long profiles that you read in the magazine. So if you like writing, that could be a space for you. If you like social media, if you find yourself constantly like jumping on trends, you spend all your time on TikTok, then like, you know, maybe there's a job in social media, or emerging platforms is what a lot of people call those positions now. So I would think first and foremost about like what your interests are, how you like to spend sort of your time in school, what the classes that you've sort of gravitated towards, and then you can sort of apply that to the positions that you apply for. And then, yeah, you know, if you you can sort of like drill down and really like go through a masthead and Google what somebody does. So if you type in like digital director Nikki Ogunnaike, then like there will be, there's kind of a sort of like it's sort of like you can find exactly what the position is with just some like light research on Google.
I would also add to that where I've tried so many roles within magazines.
And that's okay.
And I think that's okay. And I think for everyone who's joining us today, I also want to remind you all that you don't need to know what you want to do for the rest of your life, like specifically. I just think that pressure, I remember feeling that pressure as a student, like I got to decide my major because it's going to put me on the path for what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. Like that's just too much pressure.
Mm-hmm.
I think you just sort of follow your interests and one thing leads to another. And if you know you like media and you want to be part of a media brand, and as Nikki, one of the examples Nikki said, you love social media. So then that's what you start. But then once you're on the team and you're doing that, you suddenly realize, wait, I'm actually really interested in like the features the features team. Like you can segue once you get your foot in the door and you sort of keep going on your path. The idea that you need to know what you want to do for the rest of your life, like take that off the table. It's ridiculous. It's like, it's the dumbest thing. I don't know where that comes from, but just goodbye. Just start. And let the rest sort of unfold as you work hard and as you learn more about the industry that you find yourself in.
Thank you so much. That's so like comforting to hear, because it's very overwhelming entering post-grad.
So hard, right? I'm still trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. Do you know what I mean? Like I just think if you're a curious person, you're always going to have that, and so just let go of that pressure.
Good morning. I just want to thank you so much for this conversation. I graduated this summer from Mount St. Mary University from the MFA program. And all transparency, you guys mentioned, would you want to, you look for people who wanted to work there, but prior to this conversation, even though I knew it was the intersection of culture and fashion, I didn't feel that it was accessible to somebody like me until I see your beautiful queen faces this morning. So thank you for that. So to my question, when you're looking for contributing writers, can you talk about the types of writing samples that cut through the noise that really resonate with you? And when people are usually, prior to it may have been generalists, the type of thing that would get on your radar?
Gosh, I would say for certain things, for cover stories, for example, like that's a different thing. Those are more experienced writers. But I think, obviously, experience, I think you got to just, again, it's like you just have to start, and I think sometimes we think about where we want to be. Like you think, oh, I want to write. I went to journalism school, I'm just going to tell you. And one of the things that they taught us was when you graduate, don't think like I want the role at the New York Times. That could be where you want to end up, but you're never going to get there when you graduate. So go work at a small town paper, get experience. And as you do that, the assignments will get better. And as the assignments get better, then you find your way to the bigger outlets. And I remember my professor saying, everyone who's at the Times, or most everyone at the Times, comes from a small town paper because that's where they got their start. And that's where they got their chops. And then they that was the progression of their career, in the same way that I started as an intern and I became an EIC, I think that's the same thing with writing. I think you just have to start. And as the assignments, as you get better, the assignments get better. And you just, again, I would, look around, see what outlets interest you, where you'd like to contribute, and see if there's a way in. Would you want to add anything to that, Nikki?
Yeah, I think that when I receive pitches from writers, I can quickly discern whether the writer just wants to have their story placed or whether they want the story and they feel the story fits for Harper's Bazaar specifically. And so that's something I always tell writers to keep in mind. Like, is this a Harper's Bazaar story, or is this just a story that you want to write, which is like fine, right? Like it's okay, but just be cognizant of where you're pitching, because we have a very clear understanding of what we as editors need and want to run within the magazine and on the website. And I think what Samira said also about just like going out for assignments is correct. I used to assist someone when I worked at InStyle who I think worked at like a law website or something of the sort. And she was kind of like, this is not exactly what I want to be doing, but it's still writing. It's still practice. I get to talk to people. I get to interview people. And so these are things that I can take from this experience and apply to, to the next job that I get. And so just being cognizant that there are skills that you can take from job to job that you may not think are technically applicable, but can be. And remember that when you are going after new opportunities.
Thank you.
Good luck to you, Tracy. It's so nice to meet you. Congratulations on your graduation.
Yay. Okay, and so for our last question, we have Kiana.
Hi, my name's Kiana. I'm a recent graduate from the University of Michigan with a Bachelor of Arts in Communication and a minor in Digital Studies. So first of all, thank you so much. This panel has been very eye-opening and inspiring. And so, which has prompted me to ask the question. So comm is kind of like a very kind of broad degree. So I was wondering, would you ever hire someone that, say, doesn't have a lot of experience in a certain position? Because I've been thinking about it. I graduated August, and so we've had the pandemic and stuff, and it's given me a lot of time to think about what I want to do post-grad, and I've kind of I was set in doing one thing, and so now since I've graduated, my mind has kind of changed. How would someone go about navigating a career change, or what they want to do if they have so much experience doing something else?
I would say that most of the people that I consider for roles don't necessarily have, journalism degrees, fashion degrees. I just want someone, I'm constantly looking for someone who is curious about all things. So I don't, and again, take that pressure off yourself, Kiana, that somehow your degree has to be the thing that you do in life for the rest of your life. That's too much pressure. I think if you want to go off and pursue, I don't know, you want to work in a library, I think that just, to me, if your resume landed on my desk and I saw that you had done other things, I would just think, wow, that's a well-rounded person. That's a curious person. So I think if you studied one thing and want to go off in another direction to try something, I don't think you should feel like you're limited. I think you should just pursue that. And I think the fact that you have a degree, to me, what degrees sort of say about someone is that they can be committed to a goal. When people are like, oh, college degree doesn't mean anything. Well, actually it does. It means that you, for a certain number of years, were committed to a goal and you worked hard to achieve that goal. And you did it on your own for yourself. It's independence. And that says a lot about someone. Is it the only way in? No, but I do think this idea that somehow your degree doesn't mean anything, it does. And so you should feel very proud of that. And I think you should give yourself space to explore other ideas and other things that may interest you. And know that that doesn't mean that you will not achieve what you're looking to. You can still discover what that means for you,
Mm-hmm. And just trust that organizations are eager to hire people from different backgrounds. Our social media editor, who we just hired, comes from Congress. She did social media for Congress, doesn't have a fashion background, but I think we were both really inspired by our talks with her. We loved that she, in fact, came from a different background. And I think we both look for people that are going to help push the magazine forward and not just sort of have it stay in the status quo. So just, keep in mind that people are hiring from various backgrounds.
And also people who know, to Nikki's point, people who know about things that we may not know about. That only adds to our equation, and that only makes our team stronger. So that just becomes an asset for you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for Samira for sitting with us today and having this wonderful conversation. As I said, it was an honor. And I'm going to turn it back over to Faladay Bell for more remarks.
Before we say that, I just want to say, Nikki, thank you so much. It was so nice to have you do this talk with me and to just hear your perspective. And I also just want to thank everyone for joining us.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Samira and Nikki. What an inspirational conversation and such great words of wisdom. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. We're so excited to be offering these events for free, and we'd like to give a big thank you to our sponsors, Comcast, NBC Universal, Discovery, Disney, Hearst, McKinsey & Company, Nielsen, and the New York City Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment, Viacom CBS, and Warner Media. We appreciate your support. If you'd like to help keep our student events free and are able to contribute, please consider making a donation to the center by clicking the link in the chat box or texting the number on the screen. Thank you for your participation in our Women Plus Media Career Summit. After you attend today's sessions, please take a moment to complete our summit evaluation. Your feedback will enable us to improve our summits and better cater to your needs. Survey participants will get the chance to win one of 3 $50 Amazon gift cards. Winners will be chosen at random. Please check the chat for the survey link. Now we're going to move to our breakout workshops, which will begin at 1:45 p.m. Eastern. You have a choice between how to succeed in the hybrid workplace with Jacqueline Peros or office hours with Aaron Matheson at CNN Audio. Then there will be networking for students assigned to today's sessions. We will close the day with our creators conversation. There are many ways to keep up with the schedule and Zoom links. You can refer to the app, text messages if you opted in, or to your email calendar invitations for today's sessions. If you have any questions or issues, please email us at community@centerforcommunication.org. We're now going to close the webinar and we'll see you at your breakout workshops at 1:45 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much and see you soon.